Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dean Hindenlang, and I am clerk to the Franklin County Board of Commissioners. Just a couple of quick housekeeping items, as this is our second listening session, and of course we learn things as we go along. I just want to remind everyone that this is a public meeting and is being recorded. We kindly ask for those individuals calling in to press *6 to mute your line. Also, if you are using your video, please be cognizant of the fact that you are on video and it's being recorded, so you might want to pause your video if need be. And although we hope that this does not happen, if you are not able to maintain decorum during the public meeting, you will be removed. So beyond that, I have no doubt that we'll have a very engaging conversation this afternoon, and I will hand it over to Deputy Smith. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dean. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Franklin County Deputy Administrator Keena Smith. Welcome to the Franklin County Board of Commissioners Small Minority and Women Business Owners listening session. This is our second in a series of 3, and this session is focused on women business owners, how they are managing through the global pandemic, what they need right now, and their hopes for the future. I do want to take a moment really quickly to say hello and welcome to our guest. And I would like also to welcome County Administrator Ken Wilson, who is joining us today. We also have policy managers from our Board of Commissioners offices. Marlise Wicker, who is our Small and Emerging Business Coordinator, will be our guide through much of the day. I want to thank Carla Wallace, who is helping on the technical side. And of course, thanks to Dean for his help today. First up is our Director of Economic Development and Planning, Jim Schimmer, for our first introduction.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. You look great. All of you look fantastic. We're so happy that you can join us today. And I have a distinct pleasure of introducing an individual to you who helped Franklin County last year put together our strategic plan for economic development and planning. And she was a consultant to us, but really became a friend to us. We had a good time doing the project. Every day I think about the strategic plan and the information that we have in there. Ellen Harpal is the founder and president of Business Development Advisors. It's an economic development and market intelligence consulting firm. She's located in the DC area. Dr. Harpal is also the founder of Smart Incentives, which is a firm that helps communities make sound decisions throughout the economic development incentive process. And that is a really interesting concept for a business because, as everyone knows, incentives are a very, very misunderstood, maybe jaded discussion item sometimes. Ellen and her colleague, Dareen Hackler, who is also a PhD, have worked hard to clear out the mystery associated with an incentive program and what it means. Ellen launched her firm in 2013, BDA in 1999, and then Smart Incentives in 2013. She is a frequent writer on incentive programs and policies. And prior to founding BDA, she was the manager of professional services with firm Deloitte Touche, and she advised a variety of economic development organizations on business attractions. One of the things I think is really important for you all to know about Ellen is the fact that she is a senior research fellow at the Center of Regional Competitiveness at George Mason University. And again, in my field, in our field over at economic development and planning, this is one of the top respected individuals and women in a pretty much male world in some ways in economic development. And her guidance for Franklin County has been spot on. So I am so pleased to introduce today Ellen Harpal for our session. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Jim, and thank you, Kina, for inviting me to join you today, and thank you all of you for joining us. I was very fortunate to work with the great people at Franklin County last year on the strategic plan for economic development and planning, and was just delighted to work with Jim and his really fantastic team, and I'm happy to be here with all of you again today. So as the event description said, we are experiencing what might be called a she session, and that makes it different from the past downturn, what we experienced during the Great Recession. And I'll share just a few figures before we start to hear your stories. So in May, the national unemployment rate was 13.3%, which is better than it was the previous month, but still just a terrible number. But the rate among all adult women was slightly higher at 14%. Among African American women, the rate was over 16%, and it exceeded 18% for Hispanic women. So women are being affected differently. In Ohio, drawing on a different data source, but still thinking about unemployment figures, over 52% of unemployment insurance claimants are women, but they comprise only 47% of the labor force. Again, women are being affected differently. And we see this among business owners too. Today, both women workers and business owners tend to be overrepresented in the industries that have been most affected by this COVID-19 downturn: education and health services, leisure and hospitality, personal services, retail and tourism. And this is a big difference from the last recession, when manufacturing, construction, and finance were the industries that were most affected. Now, we know from past research that women-owned businesses tend to be smaller, and they have more challenges accessing financing than male-owned businesses. And the financial challenges tend to be even more acute for African American and Hispanic business owners. This is true even in good times. This isn't the experience for every single individual business owner, but it is a pattern across the country. Further, because these businesses tend to be smaller with less revenue and fewer employees, and this, by the way, is not completely tied to industry sector. These patterns hold true within industry sectors as well. They're also less likely to have established banking relationships through which they would have financed growth. This means that women-owned small businesses, even though they're the most effective, have had the most difficulty participating in some of the programs that are out there designed to help small businesses, like the Paycheck Protection Program. So again, not only are women-owned businesses disproportionately affected, but they're experiencing the most challenges accessing assistance, because the programs are not designed well to meet their needs. We've probably all heard survey findings on this, and I'm sure some of you have experienced it. Unfortunately, we don't have specific data points on this to share with you today, because demographic data is not being collected or reported for these programs. This is something that has been criticized at the federal level. The SBA Office of the Inspector General made some pointed criticisms and suggestions to improve this. This is an important issue, and it's a challenge for us to understand really what's happening. So I wanted to just say those few words about small business owners and unemployment among women. But I was also asked to say a few words about the gig and independent economy. This is a segment of our economy that has been growing very rapidly, and it does include a lot of women solo enterprises and non-employer establishments. So it's important to us. So the gig and independent segment of our economy, it's important to remember, it's not just about Uber or Lyft drivers. It covers a lot of different types of people working in a variety of ways outside of a traditional employer-employee relationship. It includes everything from independent consultants or professionals to individuals who might be pursuing, a personal interest or the money-making potential in something that they love to do, photography or fitness, for example. They might be testing the entrepreneurial waters. There are a lot of gig workers in healthcare and construction and real estate. There always have been. And then there are, of course, freelancers and contract workers. This type of work may or may not be someone's main occupation or source of income. In fact, it's often supplemental, but for many people, it is their primary source of income. So just as a rough rule of thumb, the way we think about it is we say that about 1% of workers, this is all workers, are engaged with an online platform like an Uber or a TaskRabbit. About 10% of workers are self-employed, and this has stayed pretty constant over time. They do this kind of independent work as their primary job or source of income. But then about 30% of us, and this is a number that is growing over time, are or have been engaged in some type of gig or independent work in some capacity. We never have great data on how this looks in our economy, and we are still waiting for new data to emerge about what's happening right now. But I think the bottom line, and I guess the point I'd like to leave you with for consideration, is that in the near term, gig and independent work looks like it's going to be an important source of income for many during this time of economic disruption, even though some segments, some prominent segments themselves have been disrupted. And going forward, we really expect that more companies that have successfully navigated work from home will not only continue that at some level, but they will also increasingly use freelancers and contract workers as they get used to managing a remote and distributed workforce through venues like this. So in short, we really expect gig and independent work to continue to grow and become a bigger part of our economies in the near term. So those are the points that I wanted to make. And Kina, I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Ellen. I'll first go to County Administrator Ken Wilson and ask if he has any questions for Ellen.
You're muted, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Dean. I've been trying to exercise mute etiquette. Thank you, Deputy Administrator Smith. Ellen, thank you for pointing out that the demographic data associated with individuals that have been able to obtain financing through the Paycheck Protection Program or other SBA loan programs that in grant programming that was part of the CARES Act is not available, because that was one of my instant questions. I just wondered of the funding available, what percentage has gone to WBEs to date. But since you don't have that information, I know we hear from individual women-owned businesses that indicate that they haven't been able to receive this critical funding. Therefore, they're unable to pay commercial rents and expenditures that they've needed to keep their business open. One area that would like to ask you about very briefly is the childcare issue. That impacts both the entrepreneur, and I'm sure it has worsened the unemployment prospects for women. That accounts for that 52% that you talked about of claimants. With so many homes being led by single parent households, that's like a double adverse circumstance associated with this pandemic.
Well, you're absolutely right. And I can speak most to this issue from a business owner's perspective. If you think, I think most childcare businesses are in those categories. They're owned by women. And they are also the types of businesses that if they have gone to seek financing or have sought to participate in various financing programs that exist at the federal, state, or local level, those programs aren't set up well to meet their needs. They're set up for very different types of businesses. And so it ends up looking like those businesses don't qualify, but they don't qualify because the programs weren't set up to help that type of business. And I think this is something that all economic development groups, not just economic development groups because they don't have enough money on their own to work with all the businesses. This is really a whole team effort, but everyone needs to think about how their programs are set up, what the rules are, what they're meant to accomplish, and then adapt them if we need to for the current economic times. Because a lot of the programs that we turn to were set up for the past recession. So we might need to take a look at the rules and the parameters and the application procedures around them so that we're really making sure that the businesses that we want to help today can step through those hoops and that they are participating in the programs the way we hope that they will.
Thank you, Ellen. Thank you, Ken. Now we will move on to our first small business owner, Kidada Bethel, and I'll also be turning over the MC responsibilities to Marlise Wicker once Kidada has a chance to share her story.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kidada Bethel. I am currently director, and we have a family-owned childcare center in Gahanna called LCD Academy. Currently, we employ about 14 individuals at the center. We closed down at the end of March, and we actually just opened up Monday. So we are trying to get back into the swing of things. We did during the pandemic apply for the pandemic license and did receive it. However, we didn't have enough kids where parents felt comfortable continuing to bring them to be able to stay open. So we've been closed for quite a while. So the childcare industry, it has affected us greatly because of COVID. So the way that we shut down is not the way that we have to open back up. So we're looking at, smaller ratios, smaller classroom sizes, increased expenses. I've had to increase revenue. I've had to increase rates to be able to try to make up for some of the difference. But even in that, we'll still be running at somewhat of a deficit at opening with the smaller ratio sizes. I've brought back my employees, but at this point they're underemployed because I am not allowed to have enough kids to be able to employ all of them at a full-time rate. So before the pandemic, our center held about 75 to 77 kids. Under the new rules, without splitting classrooms, at the max, I could take 47. So a third of my kids, I have to either put on a wait list, and then we're in the process of trying to divide our classrooms to be able to take more kids to increase our revenues. So I'm a third down in my revenue based on my children that I'm allowed to take, but the amount of cleaning, the amount of requirements that we have to do, just the amount of things that we have to do to keep people safe, our expenses have increased. We initially applied for the PPP loan on the first day that it was available. We worked with our bank to apply for the loan. We did receive the loan. However, the amount that the banker told us that we were eligible for and could receive was $40,000 less than what we actually got. So, it was the difference between, on amount A that the banker told us initially that we could get, we're good, we can probably sustain our business, to now the new amount B, now we're looking at, can we sustain our business? Do we have to close? What is that going to look like? And even after we discussed it with the banker, we were told, we're all new to this process. He made a mistake in telling you that the calculation was wrong. So then it left us looking for additional funding to then help to make up for the gap and the difference, because at this point we're operating at a deficit. So I know the state has eligible funds that help centers in childcare, but that is only for the next 2, maybe 3 months. And then at that point, it's an unknown. It's the unknown if we can take additional kids. It's an unknown if we will get additional support. It's all really an unknown if we can sustain our business in this current environment. It also adversely affects some of our parents. So for instance, any of our kids on public funding, we are now no longer taking part-time children on any level, because at this point I can't afford to, because I don't have the space. And it's also going to adversely affect kids who are public funding, because their rates are lower. So if I can take a private pay child and maybe make almost twice or 100 and 150%, I would take that child versus a public funded kid, solely because it's about being able to sustain my business in this current environment. So there are a lot of different factors and unknowns as we move forward. Even though we're open, it's still unknowns. Parents still have reservations about bringing their children to childcare, about how we keep them safe. There are a lot of new rules that we have to implement, and it's about training the parents, it's about training the children, it's about training the staff that this is the new way. How we closed in March is no longer how we can open in this current environment. I would say that some of the current needs for our business are continued support. Even with the PPP loan, being closed for 3 months, having just 2 months of salary is not enough to sustain us in this current environment, because I'm not sure as a business owner how long we can sustain in a deficit world. So being able to have continued support, being able to help with supplies. For instance, I need an enormous amount of gloves now, even more than I did before. And now gloves have doubled in price. This box of gloves that I bought in March was $30. Now it's $62 for the same exact amount of gloves. So I'm continue to go up on expenses for just needed things to keep the center clean and keep everybody safe, but with no additional support to get there. So I think some of the things that could be helpful as childcare continues, because it's definitely important. And I think the need is going to be even greater with schools talking about not going back every day. That's going to put a lot of parents in a position where now you need a school ager, you might need a space for them 2 days a week and then 3 days a week. So there's going to be a lot, there's going to be much more demand than there is supply of childcare, because it's just very hard to sustain in this environment without continued support. So some of the things that could be helpful.
Kidada, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine.
I don't like the timekeeper role. It's like,
No, not a problem at all.
on. But anyway, would you mind wrapping up for us?
Sure. Just quickly, some of the things that could be helpful will be additional support for kids, higher rates for public funded kids, additional resources to get PPE for supplies and for staff. And I think I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you. Please check the chat box. I think Director Bivens sent you a message there.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
I know we'll probably have some questions for Kidada, but we do have some folks who need to roll off at 2:30-ish. And so if you don't mind, I'd like to move on to, if you write your questions down and we can circle back, I'd like to move on to our next presenter, Marlise.
Sure. Sorry about that. I thought you were going to keep on rolling. Next, we'll move to Asleen. Welcome, Asleen, the former owner of Empower Bus.
Thank you. My story is not unique to, I think, a lot of the women on this line in terms of having a dream and wanting to execute it for the support of the community. So I launched a social enterprise in 2017 called Empower Bus. Our focus was in getting low to moderate income communities to and from work, education, and healthcare. That was the primary. So the goal was that 60% of our portfolio would be supporting those communities, and the rest would come from fill in the blank, right? So we launched in 2017, participated in a social enterprise accelerator here in town called Sea Change. That's SEA Change. And we were one of 15 in our cohort. We then received funding at the end because we did a Shark Tank pitch, if you will. The funding came from United Way, IGS, the Business for Good, and the Columbus Foundation. We formed as an LLC, so we did not form as a nonprofit, which I think when people hear the work that we did, they assume that we were a nonprofit, but we were not a nonprofit. And so we worked with corporations to get their first, second, and third shift workers to and from work. I did not do traditional funding. We sought funding from a family foundation called the Wells Foundation, as well as the Columbus Foundation. But what I will tell you from the Columbus Foundation end of it is that I had to personally guarantee it. And I am not partnered. I am a single woman that had a dream and went for it. Fear is not something. Fear is allowed in my car, just in the back seat, not in the passenger or the driver's seat, right? And so I went for it, very proudly started this business, forged some really great strategic partnerships, actually at CODA, and our home office was at CODA. And then COVID happened, and we lost $600,000 worth of clients. And I just wasn't going to be able to make the turn. I also had a friend at the CDC that was saying that there's a second wave. And I was like, we'll barely make this wave. And I don't think I'll make the second one. And if I'm being perfectly truthful, I did not trust the PPP. I didn't trust the loan process. I had a lot of strong feelings about how we bail out our airline industry. And yet we call small businesses the backbone of America, but we were asking them to take loans that could be forgiven. And I had enough loans on my back alone that I just I didn't trust that if I missed something or I didn't do something correctly, that I wouldn't be, again, bearing the weight of what that looked like. And so I had to make a very quick decision because cash is, I'm going to say, queen with all these women on here. And so I knew that I needed to preserve that cash so that I could pay back the loans that I had. I had to let my staff go. I was a staff of 20 in 3 short years. And so we really had, I would say that the wind was at our back in our sail. We were sailing and COVID hit, and I just didn't trust the process. I feel like a lot of people could say that. And I know a lot of Latino companies, especially I'm second generation. I know other Latinos here in town that just didn't trust that their bank was going to walk through it with them the right way. There was a lot of unknowns. Things were shifting. And so I made that decision because I couldn't bear anymore. And I've landed in a position that allows me to keep my vision and mission going. But I will say that it was a tremendously hard decision. This was my baby. I don't have kids, so this was my baby. I don't regret taking the opportunity to do it, but I will say that it was tough.
Thank you, Asleen. You hit it right on the head with 5 minutes. Thank you so much. Marlise, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. Next, we have Amy. Amy is a retailer in Westerville, Ohio. Welcome, Amy.
Marlise, can I just interrupt just really quickly, if you don't mind? We have a couple people that need to roll off, and I'm wondering if they have any questions that they would like to ask. I'm thinking of our policy managers of Kidada or Asleen. Just wanted to ask that really quickly. Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Marlise, for allowing me to interrupt.
You're welcome. Amy?
Okay.
You can proceed.
All right.
It's okay.
Sorry. I'm Amy Winter. I own 3 retail shops. 2 are in Westerville, and then 1 is in Delaware. So when this all happened, we were projecting to have our best year yet. I had opened my business in 2012. I had cashed out my 401k, so I used everything that I had kind of built up during my younger years to kind of go after a dream that I always had of owning a small business. So in 2012, I opened my shop, I grew it, and then in 2016, I opened my second shop in Delaware. And then just this past fall in Westerville, my shop is unique that I have a clothing shop and home decor shop. Sorry for hearing that dinging. And basically, we had just separated the 2 shops in the fall of this past year in Westerville. So now I have 2 storefronts in Westerville. So we were having a great year. We were projecting this year to be a great year as well. And when this all happened, everything just kind of abruptly stopped. So basically, it was this transition of having customers come into our store and us working with customers to moving everything to email and social media sales. At the time, we didn't have our website completed. So it was a lot of long days and not much pay, but still enough to kind of get us through the motion of everything that was happening. We applied for the PPP on the first round. We didn't get it. On the second round, we applied again, and we thankfully were able to receive it. But there again, it helps right now, but about the future, we're not sure. So, if this continues, now that we're reopened, we reopened in mid-May, it's been a slow trickle. It's nothing, like it was before. So what we're seeing is less foot traffic. I have to start bringing back employees. We had to we couldn't employ people during the time. It was just me and 1 other employee part-time. So now that we're bringing the staff back on, just because we're open doesn't mean that it was like it was before. So it's a struggle. I'm starting to worry about what is going to happen as time goes on, especially if there is a second wave and closures happen again. I mean, I don't know what it would look like for us. I mean, we would definitely probably have to consider closing 1 shop at least. If it got really bad, it could be all of them. So it's concerning. Many of us have put our savings, our time, our heart into everything that we have built. and this just kind of put a big stop to it. So it's been definitely a struggle. It's a new norm. We're spending a lot more on safety products as well. So cleaning supplies, and there again, prices are going up on everything. And, you know, also it's a new norm for me and my staff. You know, we're constantly, like everyone else, having to wear the mask, something that we're not used to. So it's just this different phase that I guess we're entering. So I think our biggest concern is, you know, the future and what it looks like. For retail, our biggest sales are going to be third and fourth quarter. And we get worried about that for the holiday. And if there is a second wave, then what does that mean? So it's scary times for us. We're concerned with what could happen and how we take those steps if we have to go into a next closure. So now that the PPP came through, but now that we're phasing, you know, it wasn't a lot. But it was enough to help. But now that that is going to be gone and the numbers keep coming in and increase for payroll and things like that, we don't know kind of the steps to take. And yeah, I think the need is just, you know, as much information and help that we can get. Maybe if there's grants, programs, loans out there that we could look into. So yeah, sorry, it's not 5 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you. County Administrator Wilson, do you have any questions?
No questions at this point.
Okay. Deputy County Administrator or Director Shimmer, do you have any questions?
I don't at this
Move
time.
forward. Okay. The next woman business owner we're going to hear from is Samithra. Samithra is President and CEO of Zed Digital. I think you're muted. There you go.
Yeah, there I am. Hi, thank you for this opportunity to share. So I'm Zed Digital. We're a software developer. I've been in business about 20 years developing software for various industries, but about 3 years ago, we came into building software for transportation, and we built a very highly innovative product. So our product was a mobile app solution that would enable people to look up a lot of different types of transportation options in real time on a single app. So including public transportation like the Coda system or Uber, Lyft, bike shares like Lime Bike, all in one app. And we also built a payment solution that would enable hands-free and touchless payment for public transportation. So like, I mean, this was, you know, we launched this maybe 18 months ago. And because it was so innovative, we became very, I guess, well known in the industry within a very short time, and everything was going great. In fact, we won several awards, you know, the Ohio Asian Awards, Smart 50, BizTech Awards. We had articles published, you know, in the Times and Wall Street and so forth. But then COVID hit, and the public transportation and the whole transportation industry is so badly affected. I mean, so one of the good things for us is that the technology for the sensors that we have developed can be used in other industries. So, you know, even if we don't know what the future of the public transportation is, the issues right now are that people are going fare free. There's over an 80% decline in ridership. You know, a lot of layoffs, union issues. CDC issued a guideline asking people not to ride public transit for a while. You know, and there's also travel restrictions. So our business is not actually a lot in Ohio. I mean, we have the RTA in Cleveland, but then a lot of our clients are outside in other states. So because, you know, of health concerns, me or my employees, we can't travel as widely as we did. We were pretty much traveling almost every week to see clients. So now we have to come back more local and redevelop a market more, you know, in line, and at least have one or two more secondary markets other than transportation, because again, if there's a second wave, We don't know how that's going to impact. But the good thing is our products, our sensors can enable touchless payment in any industry. So for example, if you go to a gas station, you can make a payment for your gas without stepping out of your car, because the sensors will automatically connect with your phone and process your payment. Or if you're going into retail, the same thing. You don't have to touch payment surfaces, things like that. So that is a good thing. However, we made ourselves such a good name in such a short time that we have to turn around and do all over that again in some other markets. I mean, and that, we borrowed money to get here, out of line of credit, a lot of personal debt, to invest. We invested 3 years in developing this very cool technology, but then, we have to start over almost. So I guess, what we would need right now is probably more introduction to other markets, and, help with figuring out which markets may survive this, where our technology can be useful, so we can have at least one other segment to turn to if the public transportation segment doesn't pick up. With the second wave, that's highly likely that it's going to be a while before our clients can start even charging fares. A lot of them are not even able to charge fares, so our technology doesn't apply as much anymore.
Thank you, Sumitra. Next we have Gina.
Sorry about that. It took me a second to get on mute. I got a couple screens so I can make sure I stay on target and time. I do want to first say thank you to the Commissioners Board for having this opportunity and bringing women together so we can share our thing. Well, first, let me say my name is Gina Hondo. I am the owner of Ascension Construction Solutions, and we provide construction management, inspection, constructability services for the public and private sector. We are local to Columbus. We're located in, I call it a region office, but it's kind of like a co-hatch facility at Easton. We currently have 7 employees, and thank God that we have been able to maintain that, and I'll get into that more when we talk about the PPE portion of it. But our mission and our goal is to be viewed as our clients' most trustworthy advocate to provide competent and sustainable services in the areas of estimating, scheduling, owner's representative services for both public and private sector. The effects of COVID for us are a little different. We do a lot of municipal projects, so that means that the work that we perform is essential, thereby making us essential by default. So that has helped, but at the same time, some projects have gotten pushed back. So where, you spend time, right now I'm strategizing for 2021. So in 2019, we looked like we had a full year backlog, and now with things pushing out, you're scrounging to find additional work to make sure that you'll be able to keep your staff employed. We are a small minority firm, so keeping a strong team is quite essential for us to move forward and grow. Other things that have affected, I guess, that COVID has affected is the release date of what they call requests for proposals. It's the vehicle of how we find work. Essentially, we put together a proposal. It's quality based, and depending on what sector it is, you go up against other firms, and that's how we find work. But with COVID, those opportunities are far and few between. Other ways that COVID has affected us, and I don't think anybody has touched on, but I'm sure it's a factor, is the emotional health, not only yourself, but of your employees, making sure that they're comfortable in working in those situations. Luckily for us, I started this company in 2018. So last year was our first full year of operation. And so basically every penny that we got, we just reinvested it in the company. So now, I'm very transparent with my employees and say, hey, we can afford to keep going. If we didn't get another dollar this day, we can afford to keep going for this long, because that's the issue. You don't want people concerned about their job, their health, you know what I mean, and the stresses of their family life all combined into one. So if I can alleviate some stress, like, hey, whether we have work coming in or not, I'm going to continue to employ you until I can't anymore. So that's another thing that we're looking at. And sorry, I wrote notes here. I keep looking at my book. The other thing that COVID did is it exposed gaps in our health benefits. So when you're starting a company, you may not think of everything. For instance, I forgot about, long and short-term disability, and thank God nobody has gotten sick, but I'm like, oh, I need to get that scheduled. So where other people have already been saying that, there's additional cost due to cleaning and how things are moving forward, but there's also additional costs making sure that you're able to provide, health benefits for your employees. What we've been doing is, I call them COVID care packages. So, which was hard to find, but basically masks, hand sanitizer, sanitizing spray for desks and doorknobs, and just continually keeping that in stock. So whenever an employee runs out, I'm like, here's more. So that's one thing that is costly, because like I want to say her name is Samithia, mentioned that the cost of those materials, it's supply and demand has gone up tremendously. If we go into, yes.
Hi, Gina. I apologize for having to interrupt you. It's time.
Okay. All right.
So sorry. If you want to wrap up really quickly.
Yes. So the things that we need is if there's an opportunity to kind of have proposals or work where they're specifically for a small business, because right now everybody is going after everything, because things are so limited. So instead of going against smaller companies, I'm going against the AECOMs of the world versus the smaller companies that typically are in that we consider our major competition. So that's one thing. And then hope for the future is just to continue to keep the employees that we have employed and grow from there.
Thank you, Gina. Do we have any questions for Gina? Okay. Hearing none, we're going to move forward with Sherry. Sherry is with Measurement Resources.
Thank you, Marlise. Thank you so much to the commissioners for this opportunity. And I feel for all my sisters, my other women business owners who I know how hard we put everything on the line to support our families, support our communities, support our staff. And so just my hearts go out to all of you. We're in the trenches with you. So I'm Sherry Chaney-Jones. I'm the president and founder of Measurement Resources Company, as well as Sure Impact. And we're a Columbus-based organizational development and research firm that works with government, nonprofit, social enterprises to help them use data to solve complex social problems, such as eliminate structural racism and address health inequities throughout our city, state, and country. Also in 2018, I launched a software product called Sure Impact, which is actually a Rev1 portfolio company. We received investment from Rev1 right at the end of 2019. And so that technology actually helps government and nonprofits measure and communicate their impact so that they can look at social problems through a gender lens and make better investment and policy decisions. And we have 6 employees here in Columbus, and they all are master's level or higher associates. So salaries are, we're contributing to the economy in a significant way because, as you can imagine, those individuals don't work for little money. We also opened a California office in 2019, which was a huge blessing to us during COVID. So what we saw is essentially a 40% drop in revenue during COVID because our largest contract was with the state of Ohio, going into daycare centers, validating the Step Up to Quality program. Well, obviously we can't go into that, so that in the way the state pays, it's a reimbursement model. So if we can't produce a deliverable, we cannot get paid. Luckily, we were able to get PPP, so I was able to retain all of my staff during this time. But I think our biggest fear is with state government funding cuts, with, like Gina said, not RFPs not going out, projects being on hold, uncertainty with nonprofit funding. No one's willing to sign a new contract or to renew contracts that we had in place in 2020. So I think our biggest fear is yet to come. We took the PPP, we're able to keep our people employed, but we've all said to them, I don't know what next fiscal year looks like. If the contracts don't come in, we can't continue to keep your salaries on, but we just can't. So what I think, personally as a business owner, and I think I've heard it from other business owners, what would be most helpful is definitely buy local. For us, we have a technology and a service that could help us be more smart. Luckily, we did open that California office because California, especially Orange County, is reinvesting their CARES Act dollars to take data-driven strategy approaches to solve some of these problems. And luckily, Measurement Resources has gotten those contracts. So our California business is keeping us afloat right now. We're very grateful for that. But I would love for Franklin County to see if they could also invest in some data-driven strategies to solve some of these problems that we're all facing, as well as buying local, elevating your own women business owners and minority business owners, making sure you're referencing us to the community and other leaders as a solution to some of your problems that you're facing. Because I know government's going to face cuts and they're going to have to outsource work as well. So you might as well rely on your small businesses during the times of scarcity. So thank you so much for this opportunity, and I will give my time up.
Thank you very much. Do we have questions from County Administrator or Deputy County Administrator?
No questions. Just want us to be able to make sure we hear from everybody.
Okay. So that was the in portion from hearing from our women business owners. We'll be moving forward. Thank you all for your stories and your experience during COVID-19. We appreciate all the information and the conversation that you are giving to us today, and notice that the county commissioners are focused on inclusion. Now we will hear from our entrepreneurial support organization, Avery Frost with Central Ohio African American Chamber of Commerce. Avery, sorry.
Oh, no problem. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for this time to, first of all, thank you for your stories to all the business owners. It's really important that we're hearing anecdotally what's going on and a bunch of different kinds of businesses so that we can make sure that we're being responsive in the services that we provide. So yes, I am with the African American Chamber of Commerce. I'm also the program manager for the Columbus Urban League Minority Small Business Resiliency Initiative, which is a program that was funded by both the county, Franklin County, as well as the city of Columbus, with the intention to do what we can for business owners, small business owners through COVID and beyond. So a lot of our work has been around connecting businesses to financing and to resources, like business development type resources, like technical assistance and business coaching. I was asked to come in and bring in some statistics from what we're hearing both on the chamber side and on the Urban League side. And a lot of the stats fall right in line with what we've heard from all of these business owners today. And some additional stats. So of the survey that we took with the Chamber of Commerce coming into May, one thing I always think is cool is that most of our respondents are women. We're asking everyone, but by and large, 75% of the people that responded were women. And on the Urban League side, 51% of the people who have reached out for help have been women business owners. By and large, the businesses have less than 50 employees, averaging between 10 and 15. Of the people that we surveyed, a quarter of them closed temporarily due to COVID and are in stages to reopen. About 58% of them went into some working remotely, maybe a very, very small scale people in the office if they're essential. But everybody's reality shifted. Only a quarter of the people that we're talking about stayed open and because they were essential services. Of the people that applied for funding, most people didn't receive money in that first round of CARES Act. And then coming into the second, we're growing a little bit, but looking at our numbers, only about 15% of the people that we were working with. So we're at the Urban League, we have 375 current clients in my program, and only 50 have actually received the Paycheck Protection Loan. A number of people had very similar testimonies to Asleen, that they were uncomfortable with going after something that's a forgivable loan with the uncertainty, because the end goal kept changing, where you weren't sure what was going to be needed for forgiveness, how much you had to use for payroll. And then there was a huge issue with the idea that a lot of people use 1099 contractors because as a small business, that makes sense. It makes more sense to have sometimes to have 1099 than to have a W-2 employee. And they said that you had to each 1099 had to apply for paycheck protection. So then the number that you could get for paycheck protection was very much lower. So since the second round of PPP funding, there have been a number of other regional programs that have come up with county support, city support. One of them was just mentioned in the chat, the grant and loan program that just opened last week. We are an entrepreneurial support organization for that program. And the challenge that we're seeing with some of the programs that are developing on the regional level are the eligibility requirements. Some may have the SBA eligibility, where if you were denied the EIDL or the PPP, you might also be denied these regional products. And then some are based on the census tract as to where your business is located. And if by the way it was cut, you might be left out of that. So some people that I've dealt with haven't been able to access any of the funding. And so I think that from our survey, there was a testimony that I think is pretty telling of what a lot of people are saying. So I'm just going to read it. She says, personally, I'm okay and stay up to date on the resources. However, my experience with clients and others is that the funding that is supposed to be there just isn't coming through. Many don't know about the programs, don't have the reporting needed to obtain the funds, and the funds are slow to be approved, if at all. A constant thing that we're hearing is that the funds are coming out at the speed of government opposed to the speed of business. Granted, this is a very specifically weird situation that nobody could have forecasted. But the dollars, if they could get out faster, everybody would be happy, obviously. But some of the review processes are taking a little bit long, so that we literally can see people shudder in the time it takes them to apply and get an approval or a decision. So what I could report is that.
Hey, Bree. Hi.
Yes.
This is
okay.
Kina. I apologize.
No, that's fine.
If you want to wrap up real quick.
Yes, just real quick. There is a lot of optimism, but there's still the uncertainty that it's hard to make responsible decisions as a business owner. But I think that's something that we all could attest to.
Thank you, Avery. We'll move on to Betty Collins, is with NABO, the National Association of Women Business Owners. We'll share the results from the survey along with Sherry.
I'm sorry, yeah, Sherry's going to help me with the survey because she really was the heart and soul, and I just want to say a couple of things. First of all, I am the president of NABO in Columbus. We have about 200 members. Our survey, 78 women took the survey and took the time. The two highlights that I took away from the survey was 24% of them did not qualify for the PPP loan. And then 43% had children or college kids coming home all of a sudden and had to do a tremendous amount of balancing. Parents did, but I mean, it was crazy. So I am a business owner. I've been one since 2000. I've been in accounting since 1988. It's a long time. And the stories that you are all telling was what I did for a month. All I did was hear and listen to business owners. It's heart-wrenching. And the way I describe this whole scenario is we have a crisis called a pandemic that caused another crisis with a lot of confusion and chaos. And we have to put the same resources in helping businesses get back to work. There are not enough tax dollars to bail everyone out. But if you get the marketplace working, it can work itself out in time. It's still going to be hard. It's still going to be an uphill battle. But if the marketplace works, the country works, because it's provision for households that form communities. So I'm passionate about it. And NABO was, got our members on board and said, what is it that's affecting you? What is it that we need to do? And Sherry, I'm going to let you give those highlights because I could go 10 minutes. I know I'm not allowed. So Carrie, go ahead and do that, and then I'll wrap up just two other thoughts.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a couple more statistics, and that is that 47% of our business.
Carrie, can you hear me? I
Yeah.
apologize. This is Keena again. So sorry. Just wanted to make a note that it is 2:59, and so we are at the top of the hour. You all do have another 2 to 3 minutes to share your information with us, so we definitely want to give you that time. I just want to say to our participants, thank you for coming, and if you have to depart, we totally understand. If you have a question, please leave it in the chat, and we will try to get to either the question for those of us who can remain for another 5 or 10 minutes. If not, then we will post any answers to questions on the Small and Emerging website at Franklin County. Thank you so much, and please proceed, Sherry, and apologies.
Okay, thank you, Keena. Yeah, so 47% of our business owners, or I'm sorry, the revenue loss just in 2 months for women-owned businesses in Central Ohio was 47%. That was the average revenue loss just for 2 months. We also learned about the PPP. About half of our employees pay themselves not on payroll, meaning, or our members, not our employees, sorry. Our members pay themselves through distributions, which means that they did not qualify for PPP. And even if they did qualify for PPP, they couldn't pay themselves with it because they're not an employee of their own business. And I think that's something, if we're really thinking about women and minority-owned and small businesses, is that they don't look like large corporations in terms of how the business owners support their families. And so when we're developing applications or loan programs, we really need to structure them and hear the voice of the small business owners of how they fund themselves and what would be best for them. And I'll let you wrap it up, Betty, for Navo.
I mean, the bottom line is business owners have a resilience. Women business owners have a resilience that they keep going, but they're exhausted. And we have to keep getting resources and to them and help them. If it means, how do we get this open so it works? That's just huge to them. We went from, I describe it in February, I'm eating steak, and then in March, I can't find ground beef for tacos. It just was this big, complete change that we have to put our resources back into making it work. And I'm not talking about big corporate America. I mean, 92% of the businesses are under 25 employees. I mean, that's just the heart and soul and the engine of things. And from our members, we found that the confusion was the biggest problem. What do I qualify? What don't I qualify for? What can I do? What can I do? Do I just give up? I've signed guarantees. I'm on all kinds of loans. And so encouraging them was part of what we do at NABA. We really are, and we're in the realm of advocating with a lot of governmental things too. So we've been at the helm, so they're hearing that. We can definitely send you the survey that we took because it's got a lot of good detail to it. It's hard to do it in 5 minutes and explain it to you, but I can't encourage you enough as leadership in the city to put as much effort in as we stopped on a dime to getting back open. And that to me solves so much of it. It's got to be safe. We can't go back to this. And we have to have plans for if this rises again and comes back and spike. I mean, we have to have that conversation somewhere happening right now. So in case we have to go through some things again and it won't catch us off its guard. But I appreciate the opportunity today to speak with you and to have time here. I do have to get off. I have very whiny clients in the conference room that need to be consoled again. So I'm going to go do that. But thank you very much for everything today and hearing your stories. Just hang in there. Just hang in there.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So we can take questions now, Marlise. I think it would be great if we go to the county administrator for any questions that he may have of folks who have been able to stay on the line, to stay with us.
I would like to thank everyone for taking the time to provide this valuable feedback regarding your experiences in trying to navigate through the challenges that have been presented by COVID-19. But I would like to, you can feel free to put it in the chat box or speak up regarding what do you see as your greatest challenge on the horizon, and if there's any way that you all see that county government, county administration, the board of commissioners, what information is most vital for us to know as we look at additional programs, additional types of financial relief to provide to support small businesses to have the opportunity to come out of this stronger on the other side.
This is Kidada Bethel. I own the Childcare Center. I think one of the things that can be helpful is, you know, we're in an environment now where I need to be as profitable with 40% less of capacity. So additional help and support past the 2 or 3 months that the state is going to provide would be helpful. Higher rates for PFCC children would be helpful. And other grant opportunities in the future would be helpful.
Thank you.
Anybody else care to share what they think would be helpful? You can either share in the chat or unmute yourself and share.
I think opportunities, I mean, everything is changing and this is our new norm. So I think like opportunities of how to market ourselves where, you know, for me, a lot of it is business to business. A lot of it is word of mouth. If you're looking for construction management services, you're not going to my website. So now that we're missing out on that face-to-face, you know, interaction, it's harder to get meet and greet opportunities with department heads. Maybe having something that can help us, I guess, reevaluate and re-strategize how we reach out and how to keep those opportunities and connections going since we, you know, can't really do lunches and things of that nature. So changing the way we market or opportunities thereof could be helpful.
Thank you. I know we've had a recent virtual coffee and conversations. Maybe we can look at some additional virtual networking opportunities and to bring small businesses together, some virtual brown bag lunches or that type of thing. So I hope our team is making note of that.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with Gina completely. I think that's the big challenge that we face as well, especially locally here. People aren't taking meetings. So, you know, we need to start networking and rebuilding our business on a local level. So I guess that's one of the same challenges we face.
Yeah, I would echo that with business, where our business development came from paid speaking engagements on my end. Those, of course, all have dried up. So I think a lot of business owners are trying to figure out, how do we now market? How do we communicate what we do so that we can continue to attract new customers? I think all of us have needs or have services that fill a lot of needs. And it's just a matter of how do we get in front of the right people so that we can meet these needs during this time.
Thank you.
It's about 7 minutes after. I would like to offer any of our EDP staff or policy managers staff before we close. We said we'd have 2 more minutes to, if you guys don't mind hanging in there for 2 more minutes. If anybody would like to make a closing comment or ask an additional question.
Keena, this is Alex. Assistant Director, Economic Development and Planning. Just would like to thank all the women business owners on today. It's been extremely helpful, and the more feedback we get, the better we can make our programs fit the needs of the residents in Franklin County. And so really appreciate you guys taking out your time of your day to do this and give us your honest and candid feedback. The more honest, the more candid, the easier it is for us to do our job. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex.
Tia Johnson, I see your hand up.
Oh, yeah, I had a question. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. Sorry. Hi, my name is Tia Johnson. I am also a local business owner here in Columbus, Ohio. I do share the same story as a lot of individuals here. I was actually a vendor with Columbus City Schools teaching girls personal finance. So when schools shut abruptly, vendors were completely shut out of the conversation. And we're not able to get any meetings with some of those stakeholders as well as they are looking at to put out additional fires. So in my entrepreneur mindset, I was already working on another business, which is trash sanitation, where we would go out and sanitize the bins, thinking about how can we access PPE funding. One of the challenges that I've been facing is how to actually get in the right connection in order to build this idea. It's a new process with Columbus where we would be working with either trash and refuge or marketing directly to residents on offering this type of service. How can an out of box, I'm not offering masks, I'm not offering gloves, but I am offering a solution that I think helps protect us all. How can you have that conversation with the right people in order to move this idea forward?
So I think Alex, anybody from EDP, maybe we can offer some in Tia. If you put your email, oh, you may not want to put your email address. Let's see, can she, I think Marlise put her information in the chat box. Do you see that? Marlise Wicker? Do you see her email information in the chat?
Yes.
Fantastic. If you would email Marlise Wicker, we will try to put you in touch with some resources that might be able to help you. I see you're frozen, Tia, so hopefully you can hear me. Oh, there she is. Okay,
I was
fantastic.
getting the information out the chat.
Oh, okay, fantastic. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is 3:11. We want to thank you so much for joining us today. We will be back with our third listening session next week at 1 o'clock, where we'll be talking about the supply chain. The Zoom information is the same, so if you care to join us then, we would love to have you and welcome you next Wednesday at 1 o'clock. Until then, thank you so very, very much. And everybody, please stay well and stay safe. Bye-bye.